Well, hello everyone. And today's session is going to be on engaging audiences through content. Now, I admit I'm probably biased. Okay, I'll get that out of the way up front. But I actually believe that content is probably the most important element of your success going forward. And that's not just because I'm opinionated or because I'm teaching this particular module. There's a lot of market research that's been done over the years, and what people have found is that anywhere from 50 to 70%, depending on the study being done, of what impacts your success is going to be determined by the content that you create. You create mediocre content, and guess what? You are not quite so successful in social media. You create exceptional content, and guess what? Your success rate goes up. So there are other elements that are also, quote, important. But today we're going to talk about the most important element that will influence your success. Now, one of the things that has changed the way I've taught this course, and I've been teaching it since the very first module in 2020, and back then life was simple because it was before artificial intelligence. It's almost like you can draw a line now through marketing, and anything after November of 2022, in other words, after ChatGPT arrived, the world changed. So one of the exercises that I started doing a week after ChatGPT was launched, I recognized it was a game changer, was to do a little exercise to say, okay, I'm teaching a module on content. Let's just see what ChatGPT would do. So over the last 18 months, 20 months, I keep asking it questions. By the way, the answers keep changing. So it's clear that ChatGPT is evolving. But the most recent opportunity was just a little over a week ago on July 12th. I asked the latest version of ChatGPT, which is GPT-4. If my class is only about 2 hours long, and that leaves time for the prayer break, what should I teach students in the New Media Academy Social Media Professional Program about engaging audiences through content? In other words, if you're so smart, artificial intelligence, what should I be teaching? And the scary truth is that in about a minute, ChatGPT rendered this answer. It said, okay, 2-hour class, you're going to have to focus on the most essential strategies, leave a little room for practical examples, and some interaction. So, start with your introduction. That'll be about 5 minutes, and you focus on knowing your audience. That's a good for 15. Creating valuable content, subject you should cover for 20, et cetera, et cetera. And I looked through it, and it was like, ChatGPT is catching up. You know what? That's not a bad outline, really. Although there's other research that's been done lately. One was done by the University of Reading in the UK. They figured that students are also using ChatGPT. And they wanted to find out if ChatGPT could beat the students on exams. And interestingly enough, and this is just from June 28th of 2024, so this is recent news, Ars Technica has a story that, by the way, when you get these slides, all you have to do is click on the blue link there, and it will take you to the article. ChatGPT outperforms undergrads in intro-level courses, but falls short later. So that's where the state of the art has gotten us to. The scary truth is someday in the future, artificial intelligence may be helping instructors teach students who are using artificial intelligence to take exams. And won't that be a miserable world to live in? Well, maybe. That may actually not occur. And part of what I want to teach you today is not the strengths and weaknesses of artificial intelligence. I'm going to cover that in the next course that I teach you in about 10 days from now. Today, I want to focus on the content. And what I want to actually focus this model on is not what you need to know to get the basics done. You know, the basics are actually now becoming sort of, oh, how do I say this? Undergrad level stuff. And I gotta believe all of you are not in college and you're not first year or second year students. You're out in the world. So you know what? When it comes to teaching this model, why would I want to give you freshman level or sophomore level content or ideas or instruction? You know what? I'm going to work at the upper level where it turns out artificial intelligence is not as good. Why? Because it doesn't know the difference between good and bad. It doesn't understand what works and what doesn't work. All it can collect is what sort of is the lowest common denominator, conventional wisdom. So I'm not going to teach you conventional wisdom. That's not what today's module is about. Today, you're going to learn something that you will not find in ChatGPT. It couldn't teach you this. Why? It doesn't know it. How did I figure it out? Well, the hard way. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and that's hard to believe. It's hard to believe, but let me just share a quick story. In 2004, 20 years ago, I was having lunch with a woman named Chris Shipley. And Chris said she wanted to hold a conference at the University of California, Berkeley, at the Haas School of Business. She was actually asking me to be one of the speakers at that conference. And I said, okay, fine. Chris, you're an old friend. Love to speak at the conference. What's it about? And she said, social media. And I said, Chris, I've never heard the term. She said, I know, I want to coin it. It's the term I'm going to create to describe what this conference is about. And I said, Chris, that's a problem, because if you create a phrase that nobody knows what it means, why would anyone want to attend? And she said, well, what would you recommend? I said, you're going to have to define your term. What is social media? So I was there when the term was coined. Why am I considered an instructor? I was in on the ground floor. I was a speaker at the very first social media conference because the phrase hadn't even been coined the year before. Nobody talks about social media until 2004. So today I want to teach you the advanced things that I've learned over the last 20 years, some of them the hard way, because I tried a lot of things that did not work in order to learn what did work. And so I want to share with you, I'm going to skip out all the history and the messy things, but if you want to ask, there's lots of stories underneath all of what I'm going to share with you. But I'm going to help you identify 4 different ways that you can conduct audience research. Why? Knowing who you are creating content for is critical to success. Then I'm going to show you 4 forms of video content that can enchant your audience. Now, you may not be familiar with the concept of enchantment. Isn't this title of the course about engaging? And the answer is, yeah. Well, when I get to that section, you'll learn what enchantment means and how to enchant your audience. Third, we're going to go over keyword research and show you how you can use it to get ideas about new content that you might want to create. And last but not least, we're going to talk about optimizing that content so that A, your audience can discover it, but B, if the right audience discovers the right content, then and only then does it have massive impact. We'll take you through all of that. And guess what? I don't think you saw any of that. Well, you may have seen hints of it in the ChatGPT outline. Yeah. Those are basics. This is the advanced stuff. So let's start with audience research. It's the right place to start. Now, I'm going to share with you a brand new tool. It's called Spark Toro. It's a weird name. You may not have heard of it yet. That's okay. You just go to sparktoro.com. You can try the tool yourself for free for a limited number of visits. I think you get about 5 visits a month for free. But it's an interesting tool in that it does audience research, and it does it as fast as ChatGPT. In other words, within about a minute, you can say, look, I'm interested in all the people who visited the website, visitdubai.com, and it will tell you quickly, you know what? visitdubai.com gets about 1.7 million people who visit it each month. Well, that's pretty interesting. But more importantly, it tells you a lot more about them than just raw numbers. It will give you the demographics. Half of them are male, 33% are female, and about 17.3%, in other words, almost the last 1/6, are NA, not available. Now, why? What's going on there? Well, it turns out not everyone who has a social media profile indicates their gender. And what I've learned over the years is that by and large, men don't have a problem describing that, oh, by the way, I'm a man in their social media profiles. Most men, by and large, don't get hung up on that. But some women do because, well, we live in a world where women get harassed. And so some women have no problem saying, yep, I'm female, but other women just like to hide their gender. So what you get right away is some interesting data that you need to interpret. And that's how I would help you interpret it. When you see people who don't reveal their gender, odds are, they're probably women who just don't want to reveal that. Okay, got it. What's also interesting about this tool is that, again, within about 60 seconds, it will tell you, by the way, the people who visit visitdubai.com, and you can figure, since it's a tourism site, that they're people who are interested in, oh, shock, visiting Dubai. Yeah. Well, they also visit other websites like Emirates.com. Well, that makes sense. MakeMyTrip.com. Boy, I wouldn't have guessed that. Noon, Beirut, Bizzle, and then the Kalish Times. Interesting. And what that then tells you, just as Matt showed you in the very, very first session that we had, people know where you're going and what you're doing. Well, this is anonymous. In other words, you don't learn individual behavior, but you learn patterns. You begin to see that people who visit one site visit other sites. You also get to discover the keywords that they're searching for. tourist attractions in Dubai, places in Dubai to see, Dubai top sites, places to go in Dubai, nice places in Dubai to visit. So there you are in 60 seconds. If you want to know about your audience, if they visit a website, that's simple. If you've got an organization who already has a website, try that. If that doesn't work, by the way, there are other ways that you can use this tool to discover more about audiences. You could put in, let's say, their job description. Well, how would they describe themselves in their social media bio? That's another way you can do it. Or which keywords might they be searching for? So again, within seconds, you can get a pretty good idea of what a target audience might look like. Now, there are other free tools you might want to use. One of them is called Destination Insights with Google. No cost to use. Anybody can use it. One of the things that you can do is basically say, okay, I want to select a country and, let's pick the United Arab Emirates. And let's find out the people who are interested in Dubai or the UAE as a destination. Where are they coming from? Well, they're coming from number one, India, number two, the United Kingdom, number three, the United States. If you're in the tourism business, that's incredibly useful information in terms of where you may want to target some of your advertising or some of your marketing activities. What is the top city that they're likely to fly into? Dubai. What if they just want to travel domestically? Well, the top city they want to visit is Dubai. And yeah, I know you can also fly into Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, and there are other airports, but it turns out Dubai is number one target. All right, useful information. Free, by the way. Now, the other tool I want to encourage you to test and use is called Google Forms. It's also free. It can help you actually create market research questions. There are templates there that allow you to put together, let's say, a quick survey. And then you can take the link to that survey and you can either send it out to, if you have a list of people, you have their email addresses, you can email them a survey to get information, or you can embed this on your website, or you can share this link in social media. And by the way, when I covered this in the very first class that I taught back in 2020, one of the students, one of your peers, one of your colleagues basically said, oh yeah, I'm already using Google Forms frequently to find out people's interest in coffee. He has since created a program on both YouTube and on Snap called Coffee with Ahmed. And he actually got hired by Snap to create this ongoing series. So he turned that into a very successful social media career. And how does he know what to talk about? Well, he asks people what they're interested in frequently, gets interesting answers, and then that helps him decide, okay, if that's what my audience is interested in, you know, there's only so much generic information you can provide about coffee. It really, really helps if you know that, you know, people are interested in oh, I don't know, taste change, things happen. And last but not least, this is more of a coming attraction. It's not quite here yet, although it's been publicly announced. YouTube has announced that coming sometime this year, they're going to start providing to people who are creating YouTube videos what they call AI-powered insights. And what they're going to say is, okay, we've taken a look at your audience, the people who come and look at your videos. And oh, by the way, just as Matt showed you in the first session, we have an idea of what they're also interested in, because we're also watching what that audience looks at when they're not on your channel. And oh, here's some subjects that they have expressed curiosity in where there isn't all that much content out there. So if you want to create a new video, here's the subject. And the example they gave us for people who are interested in visiting, let's say, Portugal, and they're interested in history. By the way, here's some things that are subjects that you might want to create a new video on. And the people who are playing with it already, and I'm not one of them, I have to confess, I tried to get access to it, but I didn't. But of the creators who are playing with it, 70% of them, I was saying that it's really, really been helpful to develop and test ideas for videos quickly. So again, at some point later this year, this will roll out. If you have a YouTube channel, you want to take advantage of this as soon as it becomes available. Now, those are 4 different ways you can get to know your audience, and you can get to know your audience a lot faster than it took me 20 years ago. We used to have to conduct research the old-fashioned way. Boy, was that expensive. Boy, did that take time. And both the expense and the time meant that by the time we could get around to using it, well, depending on the nature of the trend, some trends come and go quickly. Some trends last longer. It was hit and miss. These days, you can catch the trends in a minute. And how fast you respond, well, that's up to you. Now, that's how you get to know your audience. That's 4 different ways to do that. Now, what do you do with that insight? What do you do with that information? Well, knowing who your audience is, what they're interested in, leads you to say, oh, I can create video content. Now, you can create lots of different kinds of content. You can create text content. You can create photos. Some of you could create podcasts, and so you can create audio content too. But it turns out visual is important, and video is the most important visual content. And a bunch of marketers were interviewed last fall, and they said, by the way, is video important to you? And it's like 2/3 said, yeah, it's not only important, but it's more important to my business today than it was a year ago. A third still said, you know, it was important a year ago and it's still important. Only 1% of those surveyed said, it's less important. So I'm going to focus on creating video content because it turns out that's what's important. And again, if you want to read the details of the survey, it's free. When you get the slides, just click on the blue link here, Video and Visual Storytelling Survey, and you can see the data for yourself. But here's some of the highlights of that data. I just pulled out a few of them. One of the things that the marketers were surveyed and asked about, and this survey was done by the Content Marketing Institute. So it was content marketers. And saying, okay, fine. Where are you posting your videos? And the number 1 platform was not Instagram. Instagram was number 4. And I gotta believe that a bunch of you probably are thinking, but Instagram, that's everybody's on Instagram, right? And the answer is, well, a lot of people are on Instagram. So, yeah, no, it's number 4. It ought to be part of your mix. I'm not saying don't be on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. Okay, fine, got it. But YouTube is number 1. And number 2 is, you wouldn't have guessed it, LinkedIn. Now, why? What's going on? What's happening? Well, this is, again, something that you only learn the hard way over time. So it's hard for AI tools like ChatGPT to sort of figure it out and share this insight with you. But it turns out the algorithms in both Facebook and Instagram like to push down old content pretty fast. So if you create a video, first of all, not everybody who has liked your account will see it. Only a small percentage will. And if those people then go back in, I don't know, a couple hours, the video has probably been pushed down by his new content. Why? That's the way their algorithms work. They're constantly pushing old content down and replacing it with new content. It's a churn machine. YouTube, on the other hand, has an algorithm that doesn't penalize old content so much. Basically, what they're looking at is what are people watching? And if people are watching it, then they tend to rank it higher in their algorithms so that it can be discovered. So it turns out content that is already getting views is what you are more likely to see. It does not push old content down quite as intensively. It's a difference in the algorithm. LinkedIn, somewhere in between. Somewhere in between. So what that means is if you're creating content, it's perishable if you're uploading it to Instagram or Facebook. It's a quick hit. You either get lucky or it's time to create some more new content. That can be exhausting for content creators. If you actually interview them, you will discover burnout is a big issue. Less so with YouTube and LinkedIn. So again, not everything that you may have thought about the platforms that you might want to use is as relevant as a little bit of experience, what it can teach you. Now, are these content marketers planning to use AI? Well, 18% were already using it last fall. And another 16% said they plan to use it within the next 6 months, which would bring us up to now. So yeah, about a third are already using AI for video content. There's nothing wrong with using AI. Again, I'm going to be teaching you some best practices in about 10 days in the next class that I teach. Nothing wrong with using AI at all. It will get you started. It's wonderful for brainstorming. It won't do the job that you could potentially do, but that's what we're going to be covering in today's module. So yeah, AI, cool. Use it, try it, test it, understand its strengths and its weaknesses. Now, what would content marketers give their left arm for? What do they really, 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 really want or need? Well, number 2 on their list is more budget. Okay, fine. Number 3 on their list is more human resources. Yeah, more people. Got it. I will tell you, over the last 20 years, more budget and more resources has been near the top of people's lists all that time. It's almost universal. It's almost evergreen. It's, yeah. We could all use bigger budgets and more people. Got it. No problem. But the number one thing that they wanted is actually a little surprising. They wanted a video strategy. Now let's think about that for a second. That doesn't cost money. It takes some thinking. And oh, by the way, it's not first year or second year of college thinking. It needs advanced thinking, the kind of thinking that you get with expertise and experience. Yeah, right. That's what's going to set you apart. That's what's going to make you irreplaceable, even if the AI tools get better. Strategy. It's a missing ingredient. Oh, by the way, it wasn't in that basic list that ChatGPT 4 spit out to cover. Was it? Yeah. But pardon me, it's the most desired thing to get better results. So I'm going to share with you a strategy. And how do I know the strategy works? Well, I've been using it over the last decade, but let me give you a little bit of background on how the strategy happened. I have a friend. His name's Guy Kawasaki. Guy and I used to work together back in the late 1980s and early 1990s. So it goes way, way, way back. In fact, well, I won't tell you stories, but if you want stories, I can tell you stories. But it turns out Guy is fairly well known, at least in the United States, because he was the first Apple Macintosh evangelist. That's how he got his street cred. That's how he made his reputation. He's gone on to become a investor in a lot of interesting startups. But he's also written a number of books. And when he got around to writing his 10th book, it's called Enchantment. He said, Greg, I'd like you to contribute some content to my book. Can you tell me how you can use YouTube to create enchanting content? And I said, Guy, you're an old friend, so of course I'm going to say yes. But what do you mean by enchantment? Is that just a fancy way of saying engagement? Because that's the word I've been hearing everyone else use. He said, no. Enchantment is different. Enchantment is different. I said, well, fine. Talk to me about that, because otherwise the content I'm going to give you for your book is going to be off base. He said, okay, so enchantment is not about manipulating people. The goal is not merely to get what you want, but to bring about a voluntary, enduring, and delightful change in other people. Whoa. And he added, how do you do that? Well, by enlisting their own goals and desires, and by being likable and trustworthy, and by framing a cause that others can embrace. Only then can you change hearts, minds, and actions. And I went, whoa, that's a big idea. That's a huge idea. That is not the way most marketers think. But then again, most marketers are creating content, even video content, that is, mediocre at best. So how do you create content that enlists their goals and desires? Well, first of all, you got to understand who your audience is. And then you've got to be likable and trustworthy. Okay. The trustworthy part is important. Likable is also kind of good. But the key here is framing a cause that others can embrace. Wow. How do you do that? How do you do that? So I said, Guy, let me think about this, because you know what? I've written a couple of books already, which is part of the reason why you're here asking me to write about YouTube. But I haven't written about this before. So let me think about it. And here's what I came back and contributed. You'll find it in Guy's book. I said, okay, I've created a content matrix. Now, content matrix is simple. And by the way, I want to acknowledge right here, any 2x2 matrix is an oversimplification. The world is more complex than a 2x2 matrix. But a 2x2 matrix is something that you can present visually here. It can get people started to think and understand that there are more than one spectrum that you've got to deal with. And frankly, if you can come up with a 3-dimensional version of this and share it with me, I'd love to use it in future classes. But let's start with the 2 dimensions. one dimension, which is a standard marketing dimension, is from awareness to action. And yeah, there's gradations between that, because you can go from awareness to consideration to, I don't know, different levels of action, trial to adoption, whatever. Okay, but that's a spectrum. But there's also a spectrum of how people make decisions, from the rational all the way up to emotional. And all of a sudden, you're doing something that, oh, by the way, AI can't tackle. It turns out AI is really good at rational. Nails that. Got it. It's good at that part. Absolutely vacant when it comes to emotional. AI has no clue, no hint. It's has no emotional intelligence. Doesn't exist. So right away, what you do is say, okay, where do I want to get people to go? I want to become aware of what I'm doing, or I want them to actually take action, do something, and do something maybe buy your product, or it may be, get a shot for COVID, whatever the action is that you want them to take. And you can either make a rational appeal to them, which is pretty normal for organizations to do, or you can make an emotional appeal to them, which is something that a lot of ad agencies are pretty good at. But those are the 4 dimensions. And in those 4 dimensions, I then named each of the quadrants. I said, okay, in the emotional awareness quadrant, you want to entertain your audience. But in the rational awareness audience, you want to educate your audience. And that's a good start. That will get people along the way. But if you want to get them to take the next step, you go from entertainment to inspiring them. And you go beyond educating them to enlightening them. Now, a lot of people don't know the difference between education and enlightenment. Let me just say education is like, I'm going to learn something. Okay, I didn't know that before. Now I know it. When you enlighten someone, you may actually have to get them to unlearn something else before they learn something new. That's a harder process. And the harder process means that you have to enlighten them to say, oh, I used to think this, but that I see the limitations of now. Oh, okay. It takes more effort, but those are the spectrums that you're on. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, that's academic. I'm glad it's in a book. I could probably go read the book, but can you give me some examples? Of course I can give you some examples. I can not only give you examples, I can give you examples from the UAE in the tourism sector. Why tourism? Well, it's one of the sectors that I understand. There are other sectors in the UAE that I'm not as familiar with, but let me focus on what I do understand. I've been to Dubai. I loved my visit. I got to ride a camel. I got to go to a conference. Wonderful time, wonderful time. So how do you get other people to want to go to Dubai, to visit Dubai? Well, it turns out one of the ways to do that is through entertainment or entertaining your target audience. If you want to see an example of a wonderful, outstanding, way above average piece of content that does that, watch Dubai Presents a 5-star mission, Visit Dubai with Zac Efron and Jessica Alba. What they've basically done is create what looks like a movie trailer for an adventure of 2 people visiting Dubai. It makes it exciting. It was produced by Dubai Tourism, And the goal, get people to visit Dubai. Think about it, put it on your list. Make it among the places that you're considering for your next vacation or holiday. Now, what if you want to take them the next step? Okay, yeah, it's on your list, but you haven't visited yet. How do you inspire people? Well, you're on the emotional spectrum. Okay. Inspiration is a lot more powerful than entertainment at getting people to take action. But let me give you a couple examples of videos that did that. Both of them come from the Emirates Airlines. And back during Dubai Expo, Emirates ran a video. See you at Dubai Expo, Emirates. Okay, so the title, isn't the most compelling title in the world, but, fine, great. But if you watch it, there is what looks like a stewardess standing on the top of the Burj Khalifa when an Emirates plane flies behind her in the background as she's holding a placard saying, "Hey, see you at the expo." Okay. Well, that video got 5.6 million views. It's a lot of views for a video. But more importantly, it got 91,500 engagements. In other words, people either liked it or they commented on it or they shared it with their friends. In fact, it even it prompted some skepticism to say this must have been faked somehow. This is CGI, right? This nobody would stand up on the top of Burj Khalifa to say, just fly on my plane, would they? So a couple of days later, and I mean a couple of days later, Emirates came out with, well, hey, fine, let us show you how we made that video. And yeah, it's real. It wasn't fake. That's really a woman standing on the top of the Burj Khalifa. And the how-to video, the behind-the-scenes video, actually got more views. It got 14.3 million views as opposed to 5.6 million for the first version. And it got 215,000 engagements, more than double the 91,500 engagements of the first. And if you actually look at the Emirates financial records for the quarter, they were all up because they increased the number of people who visited Dubai to see the expo. Yeah, that's getting people to take action. So, different kind of content, different kind of objective. It's doable. Oh, by the way, it's been done in your part of the world. Now, let me take you to the other end of the spectrum, the rational end of the spectrum. You can also educate your audience. And by the way, the example I want to share with you here is you may know Ahmed, but what you may not know is that Ahmed is one of your colleagues. Ahmed was in the first cohort of this course. You're in the 17th. But Ahmed was where you are back in 2020. And when I got to meet Ahmed, and he was introducing himself in the class, and I said, okay, what are you? He says, I'm an economist. And I went, oh, I'm sorry. That is nicknamed the dismal science. You think anybody in their right mind wants to watch a video of an economist talking? Oh. And he said, well, everybody is interested in making more money. And I went, oh, you're right. Okay. And oh, by the way, he's created several very successful programs. One on YouTube called Economics with Ahmed, another one on Instagram called Ahmed's Information. And guess what? Baraka hired him because he's also a social media influencer. When they launched their trading platform to create a series of educational video content to increase awareness of their platform. And it not only got over 500,000 views, but it actually generated leads by driving 1,000 signups for the platform. Yeah, my student, your colleague, you can do this too. Another student in that first cohort was Matha. And Matha's handle, by the way, is Myth Journey. Matha had just graduated from university when she took this course back in 2020. And I said, okay, Matha, who are you? Tell me about your background. She said, I'm a graphic artist. I do cartoons. And I went, okay, that'll be interesting. I'm not sure that there's a lot of successful cartoon content out there in the world of video, but good to have you in the course. She was actually the one I worried about most. It's like, am I teaching people to do something that they're going to try and fail miserably? I mean, what kind of teacher does that make me? Well, Matha took what she learned in this course. And the lessons aren't merely how to create a video. That's basic stuff. Yeah. You learn that too, the how-to stuff. But she learned also why it was important to be fearless. Now, I don't know where she learned that from, but somehow or other mixed into the curriculum in a place that I couldn't find or identify. Or maybe that was just in Matha all along. And it just came out because of the course. But she went on to create videos. One of the videos that she created was my story with a victim of harassment, where she talked about how she'd helped a 13-year-old girl who'd been the victim of online harassment by a 24-year-old man. And oh, by the way, prompted the government to contact her and say, thank you for raising our awareness of this issue. This is an issue we've got to deal with. We've got to take action on it. It did not go unnoticed. This is a video that prompted action because it enlightened people about a topic that was a little sensitive. That's what I mean by fearless. That's also a student, a colleague of yours. What she did with what she learned. Now, it turns out there are a lot of people who monitor what we're teaching. You know, I'm okay with that. I mean, that's true when I teach at Rutgers University. There are people who want to know what I'm teaching there too. So that's not weird. But among the people who seem to be learning lessons from what we're teaching, even if they don't sit in the class, even if all they do is see what we're teaching people, turns out to be the government media office. Oh, by the way, they are heavily involved in the New Media Academy. Okay, the CEO is a member of the government media office. So they get it. They get it. And they may not have actually sat in the seat that you're in, but, you know, I got to believe that they're picking up on what we're teaching, because one of the things that I found early on, we started teaching in July of 2020. By December of that year, so within 5 months, the government was changing its policy, basically driven by the COVID pandemic. And basically, they discovered that, you know what, international tourism has cratered. It's crashed. We got a problem because a good chunk of our economy depends on tourism. And if we can't convince people to fly internationally because we're in the middle of a global pandemic, then we're going to launch for the first time a domestic tourism program. We're going to take all the people who are already here and give them reasons to visit parts of the Emirates they may not have seen yet. And the umbrella term they came up for this campaign is we're going to call it the world's coolest winter. And the mission of the world's coolest winter campaign is to get people to visit the hidden gems of the 7 Emirates. Domestic tourism. Whoa. Now, that's an ambitious strategy. It's not one that I recommended to them. It's not a program that I worked with them on. And I'm not trying to imply that. But it turns out they set a pretty ambitious goal. But it was also a necessary goal in a pretty strange circumstance. Now, this is why I know we were on their radar. One of the videos that they created as part of this program was called Let's Go the Emirates. And again, you can click on the link here and go watch the video yourself. What you may not realize is not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 of the students who were in the first cohort of this program, your colleagues, are featured in this video. And one of them, just to give you an example, is Fatima. Fatima is, again, the first class, boy, did they defy stereotyping. Fatima is the first Emirati opera singer. I did not even know that the Emirates had opera singers. Well, she's also an accomplished pianist and a cellist. And part of the video, to encourage people to discover the hidden gems in the Emirates, has Fatima playing her cello in the middle of the desert, which is not where you would expect to see someone playing the cello, is it? But visually, it gives you the kind of, oh, who knows what you might discover if you visit parts of the Emirates that you haven't seen before. And let me just share with you the results of this first year's campaign. Now, they had never done a domestic tourism program before, ever in the country's history. And the country's been around since what, 1971? Yeah, so that's a long time. And they generated over 2,000 media reports and 215 million views on videos that were related to this campaign. And most people would declare, that's huge, that's a victory, okay, we're done. No, 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 no. As I was teaching students in that very first cohort, that's what I call an output. An output is something that happens because of your campaign that you can measure. But again, let me just do this rough translation for you. An output is not something you can deposit in a bank. If you say, I got 2,000 media reports, and you go to any of the banks in Dubai and say, what's this worth? They don't know. If you said, but I got 215 million views, and you tried to deposit that in the bank, would the bank know what that was worth? So that's an output. One of the things that we try to teach people in this course is the difference between an output and an outcome. An outcome is something you can deposit in a bank. It's a business outcome. It's a, something that has monetary tangible value. So here are the outcomes of that first domestic tourism campaign. They attracted 950,000 domestic tourists, which drove 1 billion dirhams of revenue into the hospitality sector in the beginning of a global pandemic. Yeah, that's money you can deposit in the bank. Oh, and for the hotel industry, they helped raise what is called the hotel occupancy rate by 17% year over year. And that may not seem like you can take that to the bank, but here's why the hotels know you can take that to the bank. By the way, the hotels generally have a vernacular term for this. They call it heads in beds. If you can increase the number of heads in beds per night, and oh, by the way, you don't have to discount the room to get people to take those rooms, to rent, to get those rooms. And they were able to maintain their price at 450 dirhams a night. That's money you can deposit in a bank. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about, yeah, I got some views. Hooray, good for you. That may or may not lead to anything. Depends. It depends on who was viewing and whether you move the needle when it came to awareness to action. In other words, there's another dimension here that you need to think about. That's an important dimension. Now, for season 2, guess what? Season 1 was so successful. What do they do for season 2? Let's do it again, only this time, let's do better. Now, I will tell you that I've been in that situation lots of years. That's not unique to your part of the world. I've worked for people in the United States who said, oh, you broke a record last year, and then now this year we expect you to top it. Yeah. Be careful. Sometimes you become a victim of your own success, but all right, fine. Experience will teach you these lessons over time. So in the second season of the World's Coolest Winter, I said, okay, what can we do to take this to the next level? Well, first of all, we're going to move from educating people about the world's hidden gems to inspiring them with photo and video content that highlights the country's diversity. Wow. Okay. This is why I know somebody somewhere was learning the lessons that we were teaching, even if they weren't physically seated in the Zoom. And what did they come up with? Well, they came up with a video that, by the way, I have to give you a warning about this video. If you click on the link here, a winter through my eyes, and watch the video, have some tissue or a handkerchief ready. I can't watch this video without crying. I know. It is emotional, but that's the spectrum it's working in. And here's the story it tells. It tells the story of Clara, who is a young girl from Lebanon who has been blind from birth, who comes to visit the United Arab Emirates during the world's coolest winter and can only experience the country by being there because she can't see anything at all. And I'm going to tear up here just to describe the video. It's amazing. Why is it enlightening? Because Basically, it makes you understand that what seems impossible just happened. Whoa. This is something a video can do. This is something video content can do. Watch this video. This sets a standard that's pretty hard to match. How did that do? Well, yeah. They got a lot of videos submitted because that was what they were asking people to do. And the videos got, millions of views. Okay, millions of views is a good thing. And they got a lot of people who uploaded photos, and the photos used the hashtag. Okay, yeah. Those are all outputs. You can measure them. They're worth noting. You may want to report them to your boss. Got it. Here's what I focused on, the outcomes. They raised the revenues from one year to the next to 1.5 billion dirhams, a 50% increase over the previous year. 50%. They increased the number of domestic tourists by 36%, from 950,000 to 1.3 million. And they increased the occupancy rate at hotels, which was an increase over the previous year, which, by the way, is much higher than the occupancy rate of any other country in the world that is a tourist destination. The UAE accomplished something the rest of the world can learn lessons from. And oh, by the way, I'm going to talk about this 10 days from now. I'll talk to you about the Warm Winter Initiative, which was part of the World's Coolest Winter. And, when we get to that, you'll learn that using an influencer, Abu Fla, they were able to raise $11.5 million for refugees in the Middle East and North Africa. And they were able to raise that from 155,000 donors around the world. Oh, by the way, that was also part of season 2 of the World's Coolest Winter. So, this is powerful stuff. This is not, I'm going to learn a couple quick tricks so I can pass my exam. This is not first year, second year level stuff. This is what is actually possible, what you can learn, what you should do, what you should aspire to try to do, what you should be fearless in trying to do. And even if you don't succeed a few times, learn from that and continue trying, because you're on the right path. Learn from your mistakes. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong at all with that. I do not guarantee instant success. I do guarantee that you're on the right path. You're measuring the right things. You're learning the appropriate lessons. Now, before I jump into keyword research, are we near the, Yasmin, are we near the prayer break or not?
Greg, we need to take the break at 7:15.
Okay, and what time is it now?
7:08. So I think it's, or even we can take it now and come back at 7:30 if you like.
I'm at the midway point, so this is a good place to pause if we can.
Okay, so we can pause now and come back at 7:30.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. See you all at 7:30. Thank you very much.
Well, it would be nice if people showed up when they said everyone showed up. That's supposed to be fun.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Are we back? Can you please open your camera so that we can know that you're here and we start? Thank you, Nayan. Hello, everyone. Greg, we can start and they will come gradually.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
actually, before I jump into the second half of this presentation, let me just pause here and ask, does anyone have any particular questions about the first half of what we covered? The different ways to identify your audience and the 4 forms of enchanting content. Any questions? It's okay to have questions because this is advanced stuff. It's not basic that, oh yeah, we all covered that in university. This is different. It's all right. Questions help you actually make this your own. One of the things that you need to do is learn to apply this for your presentation at the end of the course. So, any questions? None? You mean it was that obvious? Oh man, I gotta make this stuff harder. All right, no, I saw the reaction.
Yeah, it's very clear.
Oh, okay, it's clear.
I hope so. When we come, I don't know, when I come and put this stuff on ground, I don't know, maybe. But till now,
Well,
it's very clear. And I was very
good.
interested about the campaign and everything. It's adorable. And the numbers, it's insane.
The numbers are insane. The numbers
Yeah.
are insane. And there was a point in time, I'm going to say 15 years ago, where I was teaching workshops on this topic and people were going, huh, what are you, huh? I don't know. And the answer is, the good news is, over the years, it's like so many people are now doing it well that it's like, well, yeah, so how do I do it well? And so this is good. This is good. I'm glad it is clear. Again, you can tell the book was written, I guess, back in 2011. So It was new news then, so I guess it's old news now. All right, well, then it's time to move on.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a question.
Ah, good. All right, hang on.
Since because I'm just trying to understand it from my kind of work and my when I do any kind of campaign, usually it's corporate because I manage corporate kind of communication. So usually there is no specific outcome, whatever I plan, whether it's release, social media, how can I see an outcome? How can I measure it? Beside the exposure when it comes to social media.
Shama, you've asked the right question. So, one of the things that is hard in social media is to get beyond the metrics that each of the social media platforms gives you for free. So one of the things that, let's say, YouTube will give you is they'll tell you how many views you got. Okay, I got that. But views are outputs. Views you can't deposit in a bank. If you're in Facebook, they'll tell you how many followers you have. Okay. Try to find out how many of those followers will help you move your furniture this weekend. Yeah. That's the real test. So in a lot of cases, you need to go beyond the free metrics that each platform gives you to move beyond outputs. Now, once you understand that, then it becomes different for different platforms. One of the things that I've done over the years is use a free tool that's called the Google Campaign URL Builder. And while I'm talking about it, maybe Heptage, can you do a Google search for Google Campaign URL Builder and share a link to the free tool? One of the things that the tool does is it will take a URL. In other words, this is where I want to send the traffic. I want to send it to my website. And it takes that URL and it allows you then to add information. One of the pieces of information is this part of a campaign? If so, what's the name of the campaign? Did you put this link in a YouTube video? Did you put it in a Facebook post? Did you put it on a LinkedIn post? Where did you put the link? And, you know, 2 or 3 little pieces of information that will help you when you see this data later. Remember, oh, yeah, that's the link that I gave to that influencer, or that's the link that I created with the 3rd video in the campaign. And then one of the interesting things that Google Analytics will enable you to do, and that's if you have a website, and Google Analytics is free and it'll let you analyze the traffic to your website, is to learn what Google Analytics will tell you is, here's how much traffic you got from social media. Thank you very much. It's generic. It's like, that's useless. I got social media traffic. Big whoop. What the URL campaign URL builder tool is that I not only got traffic from social media generically, I got it from the 3rd video in the campaign that I put on LinkedIn, because you added the tracking code. And then once you get them to your website, you can use Google Analytics to say, okay, then how many of these people went on to subscribe to my newsletter, fill out a lead generation form, buy my product online, whatever it is, the action that you're trying to get them to take. And all of a sudden, you've gone beyond measuring the outputs, which is easy, and which all the social media platforms enable you to do, to begin measuring what is harder, which is, okay, then what happened? Now, I did this last year with a friend of mine named Katie Payne. She's got a website called paynepublishing.com, and we were trying to get people to take a course that we were teaching on Google Analytics. And we did a test. We tested 4 different kinds of content with different, appeals to see which one people responded to. And we were surprised that the thing that generated the most, not just traffic, but the most signups for the course turned out to be a photo, an image. It was like, excuse me? Okay, well, next campaign, I need to create more images. So again, once you know what it is you want to do, you begin looking for ways to do it. And by the way, this is not a new idea. I wish I could take credit for it, but over 400 years ago, Galileo, that guy, in Italy, basically said, count what is countable, measure what is measurable, but what is not measurable, make measurable. That was his advice over 400 years ago. And all I've done, I quote him, by the way, in my book, because making measurable what is not measurable is what will set you apart. And that's how you get from outputs to outcomes. But that's a great question, because Shama, it's not obvious and it's not easy. And it took me years to figure that one out. Other questions? Okay. If not, then we are going to move on to the second half of this. And we'll have more time for questions at the end as well. I try to leave enough time so that we are answering everyone's questions. All right. So one of the things that I want to teach you that, again, was not even mentioned in what ChatGPT said I should be teaching people in a basic level course. So this is your first hint that we've gone beyond the basics, is about keyword research. And keyword research is important for this reason. It turns out that if you try to figure out where your traffic is coming from, in other words, if I have a website and I want to know how much of my traffic comes from social media, and the answer is, don't be shocked if you discover that only about 6% of your traffic comes from social media. 6%. Yeah, it's not big. That the vast majority of your content, of your traffic, is going to come from Google. And according to a recent survey that was done by SparkToro, 63% of people's traffic was coming from Google, not Facebook, not Instagram, not TikTok, not even YouTube. YouTube came in at 3.57%. It was actually ranked number 3. Facebook was number 4 at 3.5%. Reddit, 2.95%, which is higher than you might have expected. So, think about that for a second. Twitter, which is now called X, 2.3%. Instagram was 0.84%. Why is it so low? Because Instagram makes it really, really, really hard to link to a website. They don't want you to leave Instagram. So the only place you can actually put a link is somewhere in your profile. Thank you very much, Instagram. LinkedIn, another 0.69%. So even if you add up all the social media sites together, it becomes, okay, that's interesting, but it's nowhere near Google. And so there are so many social media marketers who have their blinders on. I'm in social media. I can't look beyond social media. And the answer is, okay. Good luck to you. So what I want to do is teach social media marketers a little bit about Google. Because you know what? One of the things that I've been doing since, about 2006, yeah, that long, is optimizing videos on YouTube so that they can get found in Google search results. Yeah, this is one of the surprises. If you do a Google search, you'll see a lot of different content in the search results. Some of it can come from YouTube. Some of it is YouTube videos. In other words, your social media content can be found in more than just social media. Yeah, all right. So the key then is understanding, wait a second, whoa. I didn't know that. And the answer is, yeah, I know. And this is why this is advanced stuff and why you don't find it in ChatGPT. The advanced secret then is that keyword research, which is the phrase that search engine optimization industry, or the SEO industry, uses to discover what people are searching for. Now, they've been doing it for so long, they normally only consider Google as a source of website traffic. They actually are mostly blind to the fact that, oh, by the way, Google has for a long time surfaced images and videos in their search results. So I like to think of keyword research as a way of conducting consumer research, like the 4 ways that we taught you about figuring out what your audience is interested in. Well, those 4 ways are all good. I encourage you to use all 4. But guess what? There is another way to get into the mind of your target audience. You find out what they're searching for. And the key to understand is they'll search for a lot of things. Why? Because, well, people are complicated people. They are not one-dimensional. So they generally have lots of interests. And again, I love the fact that Matt opens this entire course with showing you how you can find out what Google knows about what you've been searching for lately, including the YouTube videos you've been watching. But here's the advanced concept. A lot of people know how to do keyword research to find out what search terms people are using, because they're going to put those search terms in, I don't know, the headline of a blog post, or in the title of a YouTube video, or wherever you want to put it. But it takes advanced thinking to think about, okay, now that I know what they're looking for, why are they looking for it? What is their intent? What are they really trying to do? And let me tell you that a lot of people, when they conduct searches, don't find what they're looking for the first time out. So they start adding words and they grow their search term. This is a funny behavior that I've watched over 20 years. One of the words that they'll add to a phrase is best. So I don't know if Matt shared with you the best shawarma near me or best restaurant near me. That's one of the terms that people search for in Dubai. But they also search for cheap shawarma near me, or cheap restaurant near me. And think about this for a second. The people who are looking for best have a very, very different set of interests or intent than the people who are using the word cheap. And if you think about that for a second, then all of a sudden you crack the code. You not only get buried under a long list of potential search terms that people are looking for that can take you in hundreds of different directions, to focusing on the variations of what they're looking for that give you a sense of specifically the kind of content they're interested in finding. Now, let me give you an example. And this is a tool that I didn't use in the first part that says, here's a way to understand the intent of your audience. Well, guess what? This is a fifth way of getting into the mind of your audience. Oh, by the way, it's free. Oh, by the way, my good friend and colleague, Matt Bailey, who we only disagree with on football, American football, by the way, college American football, but anyway, also loves to use. It's called Google Trends. You can use it. By the way, the default setting for you is likely to be United Arab Emirates. The default setting for me is the United States. So they know where you are located when you do a search. Or if you happen to be in, let's say, Syria, then they know you're in Syria. So the default setting would be Syria. And you can toggle that. In other words, if the default setting is the country you're in, you can set it, as I've done here, for, I want to see what the worldwide trend is. Not for one country, but worldwide. That's not a default setting, but I can see that. And the default setting is for the last 12 months. This is not a default setting. I want to see what the trend was like for the last 5 years. And the default setting is web search and all categories. But by the way, in addition to web search, there's also an option if you click on that and look at the drop-down menu for YouTube search, which is a different trend than web search. But then I'm going to use web search because that's where 63% of your traffic comes from. And I'm interested in the people who search for, visit Abu Dhabi versus people who are interested in visiting Dubai. And surprise, surprise, there's a lot more people interested in visiting Dubai than Abu Dhabi. But here's what I want to call your attention to. Look back at that ginormous drop in search interest. The red line suddenly plunges down from, I don't know, it's somewhere around 60% mark down to maybe the 20% mark on its index. It just plunges. Well, guess what? When do you think that happened? That happened, about March or April of 2020. Because of, surprise, surprise, a global pandemic. And suddenly, it goes down for people interested in visiting Abu Dhabi. So there's a dip there in the blue line. But for the red line, it's a plunge. That's why I know tourism took a hit because of the pandemic. This squiggly line tells a story. The story it says is, you want to know why the UAE suddenly decided to launch its first domestic tourism campaign? Because worldwide interest in visiting Dubai went south for the summer in 2020. And interestingly enough, it bounced back by the winter when the world's coolest winter campaign was launched. And by the way, it bounced up again. And today, search interest and visiting Dubai is as high as it's ever been. Pre-pandemic. It's come back big time. And yeah, there's ups and downs, so there's some seasonality. I have been told you do not want to visit Dubai in the summer. You definitely want to visit Dubai in the winter. Okay, I got that message. But all of a sudden, this little chart, these squiggly lines tell you a story. And the reason why I like to show people Google Trends is because if they have trouble convincing, oh, I don't know, their boss, some executive in their organization of what's going on, the squiggly lines tell the story pretty clearly to even people who aren't as savvy about what you're doing as you are. It's a pretty powerful, persuasive tool. Now, there are other ways to figure out what's on the mind of people in your part of the world. If I go to Google and I start typing, and I did this recently, and I started typing Dubai flooding. One of the things that Google does, and you can see in my drop-down menu here, are you interested in Google flooding today, or death, or 2024 airport, or cloud seeding, or 2024 reason, or before and after the flood, or flood history, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, by the way, people are also asking, why is it flooding in Dubai? Is Dubai at risk of flooding? When did Dubai flood in 2024? Oh, by the way, people are also searching for the following images or videos. In other words, I can even get into the mind of recent travelers are using what is called Google's autocomplete feature. Now, the autocomplete feature was created by Google a decade ago so that people who were on, let's say, a smartphone or other, handheld devices, ended up typing shorter search terms because it's easier to type on, let's say, a laptop device than it is on the smartphone, even though I've seen people use two thumbs typing on a smartphone at an amazing speed. It still turns out the search terms they were typing in tended to be shorter. And in other words, it gave Google less insight into what their actual intent was because they weren't getting enough words. So they started saying, I know, let's take what people have been searching for recently, because we've got that data, and let's give that to you as a shortcut to say, if you started typing Dubai flooding, it's like reading your mind. Is it one of these likely things that you actually would type in if you took the time to finish typing? And the people also ask, where does that come from? Well, it turns out a lot of people use audio search. Instead of typing, they speak into their smartphone, and that's where those search terms come in. Why is it flooding in Dubai? And oh, by the way, people will also conduct searches on YouTube. And so people are also searching for the following videos. Google has all of that information. And so what it's trying to do, and it's showing you, is this is what other people have been doing recently. Is that actually what you're trying to do too? Or are you trying to do something different? And if you're trying to do something different, then you type in whatever it is that's different. But if you're trying to do what everyone else is doing recently, then you pick one of these, click on it, and it will take you to those results. Now, this is a feature that's supposed to give people who are conducting searches shortcuts to finding out what they would actually do if they finish typing. But it also gives you insights. You now can basically read the mind of people who are searching recently for what it is that they're actually looking for. So just as Google Trends will give you help, Google Autocomplete will give you help. There's also some paid tools that you could use. You may or may not want to use paid tools. I use them because, well, that's my business. You can use them on a limited basis for free, but they have one of those business models where we'll give you 3 searches a day for free, but if you want to do more than 3 searches a day, then you've got to subscribe to our tool. Okay, fine, whatever. But use the free version for 2 or 3 times a day. And I typed in recently to this tool called Answer the Public, which it says listens to what people, the autocomplete data that I just showed you. And of the people who are typing in visit to buy, here are 53 of the 89 things that they are actually asking. These are the questions. Why 53? Well, more people tend to ask these questions. Why 89? Well, because if you want the gory details, they're there too. And now all of a sudden, if you're creating content, you know the more detail of what people actually are interested in. And you can use that additional detail when you're creating a YouTube video or a blog post or a LinkedIn post. Any of the things that you can find in Google search results. And last but not least, I want to show you another tool. This is a paid tool, and I don't think they have a free version. So I use it because, again, I'm in the business. Among the clients that I've worked for were the Starwood Hotels, which about a decade ago decided to open 5 new hotels in the United Arab Emirates. And so I started using the tool to try to figure out, you know, if we want to get people to come visit a hotel that didn't exist last year, we just built it. What are the terms that they're likely to use? Well, hotels in Dubai is a really good term. And if you're opening a new hotel, that boy, you want to be found for that search. But interestingly enough, number 2 on the list was Arabian food. And if you're in the hotel business, you could say, oh, well, that's the restaurant category. No. Big mistake, big mistake. That's not an extraneous other category. Every hotel that I've been to, including the 5 that I helped open in the UAE, a couple in Dubai, a couple in Abu Dhabi, 1 in Sharjah, has a restaurant in the hotel. And maybe the guests will go to it, or maybe they're going to go to a restaurant nearby. Okay, fine. If you have a restaurant in your hotel, what do you want to say about it? It's in the hotel. It features what the guests are looking for: Arabian food. Yeah. Oh, by the way, if I had to buy that traffic using Google advertising, I'd have to pay, I don't know, a lot of money to get found for that search term. 66 cents a click for hotels in Dubai, $2.49 a click for Arabian food. And there are enough searches a month that we're talking, 17,974 American dollars, and you multiply roughly by 4 to get dirhams, or $2,949, and again, multiply roughly by 4 and you get dirhams. And so the point is that that's a lot of money to get found for that traffic. What if I could get found for that traffic by creating content instead of buying advertising? That's how I use SpyFu. Now, with these insights, this is how you create content that not only enchants your audience, We talked about that. But also gets found by your audience when they are conducting a search with the right intent. And this is the magic. This is the advanced stuff that ChatGPT hasn't figured out. You need to do more than one thing. You need to understand your audience, create content that they'll want to watch. And the reason they'll want to act on it is not because you're quite persuasive in your content. That helps. That helps. Or you're really enchanting with your content. Yeah, that helps. But guess what? If they were predisposed, if they were already interested in the subject, which is what the keyword research tells you, and then you present them and they discovered the right content, bingo. Now they start taking action, not because your content moved them. Yeah, content can move people some of the way. But this taps into the enchantment theory that Guy Kawasaki came up with. You've tapped into what they wanted to do already. That's the magic formula. That's the insight that is not a commodity. Now, there is a small army of people out there who call themselves SEOs, or search engine optimizers, who will say, oh, I can help you optimize your content. I know. I work with them. That's my industry. At one point, I was the PR agency for the Industry Association of SEOs. So I had about 700 of these organizations as my client. Well, that was interesting. When you are the PR agency for 700 of your closest competitors, boy, do you learn some interesting lessons. But one of the things that my colleagues in the SEO business have come up with and take great pride in is they've created what they call the periodic table of SEO factors. We know how the Google algorithm works, and we've created it here, and here are all these factors, and we can optimize your content because we know each and every one of them. Yeah. Right. Good for you. There's just one problem. This periodic table is built on the periodic table in chemistry. And the elements in chemistry don't change every year, do they? Yeah, occasionally you might add a new element, but by and large, hydrogen is hydrogen, helium is helium, and they don't move around, and they don't change their relative weight to each other as rapidly as Google changes its algorithm. So what is wrong with this picture is it doesn't show you any dynamics. It doesn't show you the changes year after year after year. How many changes are there? Well, in the year 2022, which is the latest data that we have that is publicly available, Google made 4,000 changes to its algorithm, 4,000 in 365 days. Do the math, and we're talking more than 10 changes a day. Actually, they were making changes at the rate of about every 2 hours. Yeah, that's how frequently Google changes its algorithm. Almost constantly. Virtually every 2 hours. And so, pardon me, if you chase Google's algorithm, you go mad, you go crazy. You can't keep up with it. The only people who I think may be crazier are people who are in the journalism field, who recognize that news changes every couple of hours, and they've never finished writing the story. All they've done is file yesterday's story, and today they've got to come up with a new angle. Well, SEOs are rushing around like a lot of journalists do, trying to always come up with the new angle. That's hard. That is hard. That is particularly hard if you're a marketer, because how can I create a strategy when everything is moving around? And the answer is, don't get hung up on Google. It's changing. But there's something that Google can't afford to do. They can't afford to give their users irrelevant answers to their questions. If a user has an intent and Google doesn't fulfill it, they could lose that user. They'll go somewhere else to get an answer. Google can't afford that to happen. So the key then, and again, you don't find this in ChatGPT, they're not going to share this secret with you. The key is not to focus on Google, but to focus on the intent of your audience. Google had better figure out a way to match it, and even if Google changes its algorithm, it better still find a way to match the intent of the audience, or they will begin losing users. So here's the secret. And Google sort of shares this publicly. It's just everyone misinterprets it because they're focused on the algorithm. What Google wants is to ensure people see more original, helpful content written for people in search results. Now, they used to have a version of this a couple years ago where the content written by people for people in search results. But in the latest update, they scratched out the by people, and now they just want content written for people. In other words, what Google has acknowledged, because even they have a ChatGPT competitor that was originally called Bard and now is called Gemini, is they understand that content creators may use a chatbot to help them create the content. But what they really are focused on is, was the content that is created still designed to help the people who are conducting searches? And so they've got several questions that they encourage people who create content to answer. Do we have an existing or intended audience for our business or site that would find the content useful if they came directly to us? Google says this. What are they focused on? The algorithm? No. An intended audience. Why do you want to start with audience research? Because who you're creating the content for is incredibly important, even to Google. It's what keeps them up at night. Does your site have a primary purpose of focus? Okay, that comes second. You got what they want to do, you got what you want to do, and so put that together, and after reading your content, will someone leave feeling they've learned enough about a topic to help achieve their goal? That's the how-to, that's the rational side of the content. I came here to solve a problem. I checked out your content. It helped show me how to solve the problem. A lot of people will go to YouTube to do how-to videos. Show me how to do this. Got it. Or will someone reading your content leave feeling they've had a satisfying experience? That's for the emotional content. After I've watched the video about Clara visiting the UAE, even though she's blind, it doesn't show me how to book a trip to Dubai, but boy, does it help convince me that if I did, that would be a really satisfying experience. And then they've, again, modified the guidelines that they give people. They added a term. So is this content written or reviewed by an expert? And the or reviewed is what they added. So it's either written in the old days by people, or is it written or reviewed by people who are expert or an enthusiast who demonstrably know the topic well? These are Google's guidelines. Google is focused on what's important. What's important is people, knowing what they're interested in and helping them either learn enough about a topic to achieve their goal, not Google's, their goal, or have them leaving with a satisfying experience. And whether or not you use AI, chatbots, ChatGPT, Gemini, you pick it. We'll get into that in 10 days. But right now, what I want you to understand is the bottom line. The bottom line is your goal is not to be clever and use a tool. Your goal is to create content that even if you're an expert or an enthusiast in the field, you're going to say, you know what? That taught me something I didn't know. Or, you know what? That was an amazing experience. So thank you, Google. Thank you, Google, for sharing the secret to success. Now, here's something else that Google has. We all think Google is a series of algorithms that are written by engineers. And oh, by the way, I don't know how many engineers you know, but most of the ones that I've met, well, let's put it this way. Their people skills are not strong. They would have a difficult time getting a date. They're really wicked smart, which is a New England expression, but personality-wise, they're engineers. I know that's a stereotype. It's a gross stereotype. Not all engineers fit that pattern. Most of them do, which is why it's a stereotype. Nevertheless, one of the things that the engineers have discovered lately is, you know what? It would really help if we got some feedback from real live people, normal people, because we think we're pretty smart and we think the algorithm we've created will deliver results that our users will find helpful. How do we double check? So one of the things that they've done is they've created a group of human quality raters. And they take whatever latest version that Google's cranked out, and they do some searches and they give feedback to the Google engineers. And it turns out, in order to give those quality raters guidelines as to what they're looking for, they share them. And I have a copy of them. I have a copy of the latest version. I've actually seen versions of this change over the years. So we have an idea of what's on the mind of the Google engineers who are creating the algorithms that they are trying to help their users find what they're looking for. And since about 2014, Google's had this concept called, is this content created by people with EAT? Expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. If people have EAT, then they're probably going to be creating content that's good, that we should rank high. So if I'm going to double check the content, is this something that someone with expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness might have created? You know, let me know if I've met that goal with my algorithm. But recently, they modified that. And by recently, December of 2022. Particularly after the ChatGPT launch in November of 2022. Yeah, you think Google was watching that too? Yeah. Within a month, they changed their guidelines. And they changed their concept of EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness, and they added an extra E. And that extra E was for experience. In other words, was the content created by somebody who's actually used the product or visited the place, or they're an authentic person who said, I had a good time or a bad time. So all that stuff we were talking about earlier, focusing on your audience and how you can enchant them, guess what? In its own algorithmic way, Google is trying to do the same thing. They want to reward. In other words, they want high-ranking content to be something that does the same kind of thing. Now, if you want to see this in your part of the world, there's a lot of different countries that Google does a report on at the end of the year on Google Trends for the year. Well, let me just pick one of those countries, the United Arab Emirates. What was trending? One in the UAE was the Saudi Pro League. Really? Wow. In the UAE, you were focused on the Saudi Pro League. Okay. I've actually watched some of those matches. And the nice thing is they are held at night because of the heat in Saudi Arabia, which turns out they're held during the day in the United States, at least here on the East Coast. So I can watch some of the best we call them soccer, you call them football. Okay, different term. But the point is I get to watch some of the best players in the world. Yeah, even I can watch that over here in the States. It also turns out that the movies that people were interested in, Oppenheimer topped the list. Everyone was focused on the Barbie movie, but you know what? In the UAE, more people were interested in Oppenheimer. Interesting. And then I certainly don't need to break this news to you, but in the UAE, one of the top trending news stories was the Palestine and Israel war. Got it. Got it. By the way, it's a big issue in the United States too. It's a big issue worldwide. But yes, definitely in the UAE. So again, Google Trends understands what people are interested in worldwide in specific countries. One of those countries is yours. Now, here's what they got up their sleeve. One of the things that I've mentioned to you is that a lot of content marketers are using YouTube. Well, one of the things that YouTube is doing is there's a lot of people who think YouTube videos are found because of tricks that you can do to optimize the video. There's a lot of people who will, I don't know, create clever thumbnails because they think that's one of the tricks that will help your video get viewed. Yeah, maybe. Possible. But one of the things that YouTube does is if somebody starts to watch that video because you had a clever thumbnail and they were intrigued enough to click to watch it. But if they stop watching it, I don't know, 10 seconds later, YouTube knows that. And YouTube will say, nah, that thumbnail was bait and switch. Within 10 seconds, people realized, that wasn't what I really was interested in. And so they actually look at the videos people are watching, either if it's a short video all the way to the end, or if it's a longer video, then how actually long they spend watching the video. So they have a variable algorithm there. But the point is that YouTube is focusing on surfacing content that people are watching, not just clever little tricks that get people to click on the video. So if you want your video content to rank high, guess what? It needs to be enchanting. It needs to be something people want to watch. It needs to be something that when it's all over, people have had such a good experience, they might share it with their friends or add comments to it or like it, or who knows, click on one of the links in the description, and you can put links in your description, including links using the Google Campaign URL Builder tool to track where they go next. And if they come to your website, what they do. And here's some interesting research that YouTube and Google have shared. It turns out when people are watching a video, they rarely want to click on a link and go visit your website. Why? They want to watch the next video. That's why they're there on YouTube. So YouTube has evolved a new metric that says, okay, fine. They didn't click right after finishing watching the video, but if they come visit your website within 3 days of watching your video, you can track them. In other words, you had an impact. The video got them thinking. And even if that isn't an instant gratification kind of move, if they, within the next couple of days, so that you don't want to allow for something else to have happened that prompted them to visit your site. But if within 3 days they visit your site, that's trackable too. So knowing all of this, how do you harness it? How do you put this to work? Let me tell you that one of the most useful tools that you can create is some people call it an editorial calendar, particularly those like me who have a background in journalism. Other people will call it a content calendar, particularly people who are in content marketing. It's the same thing. What it basically is a plan. I've got 12 months in front of me, and I want to plan which content to create for my organization. And if you want, click on this link and you're going to find there's free templates. And my colleague at Search Engine Journal, I write posts for Search Engine Journal, but one of my editors, Donna, created a post recently on the 9 best content calendar templates that you can use to get started. And use any one of them. They're all good. They're all good. And what they will do is help you plan not just your next video, that's hard enough, but to actually plan your video strategy for the next 12 months. Boy, will that separate you from the riffraff. Now, is all this worth doing? I can tell you yes, but I'm just your instructor. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe you'll find out differently. Maybe I can share a case study to show you that, yeah, but it's not an instant gratification strategy. So let me tell you the story of Dickinson College. They're a college that's located in Pennsylvania. And it turns out the president of the university was one of my first clients back in 2003, 2004. That's when she was at the University of the Pacific, which was in California. Her career moved along, and she also moved up in the academic world. And by 2017, had become president of Dickinson College. And I got hired because I had done great work for her back in 2003 and 2004 to come work for her at a new place to tackle the same problem I had tackled a lot of years earlier. She said, okay, we're a liberal arts college in the United States. Guess what? There are a boatload of liberal arts colleges in the United States, and they are all fighting for a smaller and smaller group of college students. Why? Because we're in what is called the baby bust. There are fewer high school students graduating and going to college today than there were during the baby boom. All right, if you're now struggling because you're fighting for a smaller group of incoming students, what do? Well, it helps if you have an SEO strategy, and it helps if when those prospective college students and their parents who will be paying the tuition, because they're also involved in that decision, start looking for which college should I put on the short list of ones that I go visit. One of the things that Dickinson College understood was if we can get them to do a campus tour, the likelihood of their actually registering is much greater. Okay, terrific, got it, understand. So how do you get found in those searches? Because they haven't decided on Dickinson College yet. They're evaluating colleges generally or universities as alternatives. And if they're in that sort of early decision-making phase, how do you get on the short list of places that they might actually want to visit? Okay, got it, understood. So before I started this campaign, before I came in to teach the entire marketing department how to do this, and there were, well over 20 people in the department. So we were teaching everyone from people in public relations to content creation to, the website team to you name it. And we started with the keyword research. And I started by using that tool that I showed you, SpyFu. And I said, let's get a baseline. Before we do anything, let's understand how we're doing before we start. And in December 20th of 2017, before I actually taught the course in February of 2018, we got our start and we found out they were actually doing pretty well. They had over 6,000 keywords that were ranking within the top 50 search results on Google. And for most people, they get swamped there. Oh, 6,000 keywords. Oh, how can I possibly? It's too many. I can't focus. And the answer is, yeah, fine. That's great. One of the reasons I like using SpyFu is it tells you, okay, it's a lot of keywords. Here are the top 100 that you should probably focus on. They seem to be the most valuable. If you create content for 100 terms over the course of a year, in other words, 2 pieces of content a week over 50 weeks, you're making a lot of progress. And a year from now, you want to do another series to find out if you've moved the needle, and you might want to pick some different terms to focus on the second year. Okay, fine. 3 years later, after starting this process and continuing it, they weren't ranking for 6,000 different keywords. They were ranking for 15,000 different keywords. In other words, they were up 150%. They had created more content and were getting discovered for a wider variety of search terms. In other words, terms that people were actually searching for, terms that had value, but more of them than when we started. And sometimes we could put 2 of those terms on the same page. So when you actually looked at the page rankings, they had started with 3,000 pages in the top 50 results. They were up to 5,000 pages in the top results. 3 years later. Now, rankings is nice, but rankings is an output. One would hope that if you have a ranking, you might actually get someone to click on it and come visit your website. That's closer to an outcome. And it turns out, oh yeah, they were doing better there. But you know what they were doing? Not just 150% better, they were doing 259% better. In other words, the content was more likely to get clicked on. It wasn't just more likely to rank high. It was actually written in such a way that it said, oh, that actually answers a question I was interested in. I better come check this content out. And so clicks went up from about 29,000 clicks a month, which is pretty good, to 104,000 clicks a month, which is a whole lot better. And oh, by the way, if they had bought those clicks using ads to get people to click on the ad, they would have been spending $29,000 a month back when they started, and it would have been costing them $108,000 a month 3 years later. But guess what? They weren't spending $108,000 a month because they had created the content and optimized it and made sure that it met the intent of the target audience, what they were actually searching for. And they were, yeah, there are some people will say, well, they were getting this for free. Well, they were getting organic clicks, and organic clicks, you don't have to pay for the click, but guess what? You do have to pay to create the content. So they're not exactly free. Nevertheless, they were getting a ginormous return on their marketing investment because they were not spending anywhere close to $108,000 a month on their content creation or on the person who had trained them to create the right kind of content. And here's what the president of the university, her name's Margie Ensign, really got excited about. Because it turns out the spy tool will also show you your competitive share of search results. And before we had run through this training, before we had focused on creating content for what people were actually interested in finding, she was getting 13% of the traffic share amongst the top 6 colleges and universities that she was competing with. Turns out Swarthmore, which is also based in Pennsylvania, was getting more. Bucknell University, which is in nearby New York, was coming in second. Haverford and Gettysburg College and Franklin and Marshall. She was competing with all of those for students. 3 years later, she was up to 30% of the traffic. So from 13% to 30%. Swarthmore was still big. But guess what? We'd eaten Haverford's lunch. Gettysburg, well, they were doing about the same. Franklin, Marshall, well, they weren't doing quite as well. But the point was, is we'd taken share away from her direct competitors. Now, why was that important in December of 2020? Remember the pandemic? Well, it turns out fewer college students could, quote, go to visit a college during the global pandemic. All of a sudden, in other words, instead of searching for information to figure out which college I want to visit, the visit part disappeared. Now I'm doing searches to find out where I apply. And it turns out Dickinson College maintained and actually improved the number of applications that they were getting. And the grade point average didn't fall. So they weren't like just taking anybody and everybody because we're in the middle of the pandemic, doors wide open, everybody in, anybody in. No, they were actually improving the quality as well as the quantity of students who were applying to the college. That's an outcome. Now, these are the learning objectives that we talked about covering today. Identifying different ways that you can research your audience so you can know who they are, which is the critical first step. Understanding that there are different ways to create different content to get that audience to move in a direction that they already want to move in. You're helping them get there. Understanding how to use keyword research so that that content gets discovered when they start looking for it. And by the way, measuring your results, not in the metrics that the social media platforms give you for free. This isn't about likes or shares or follows or views. Those are nice. You can track those. That's useful information. Those are outputs. This is about outcomes. Now, let me close by giving you an assignment. This assignment will help you as you are actually preparing your presentation for the capstone project at the end of this entire series of classes. And it's okay to use ChatGPT. You remember how I showed you its limitations at the beginning? Well, I'm gonna say, guess what? I want you to learn a new lesson. I want you to use ChatGPT. It's free. And I want you to ask it to create an editorial calendar that you can use for your organization or whatever it is that you plan to submit as your final presentation. So it could either be the organization you currently work at, or it can be one that you've made up that you aspire to create after this course, whatever. But to take that entity and to say, I want to create an editorial calendar because that seems to be the most useful part of getting me from here to there. And instead of using a paid tool like SpyFu to figure out what that is, I want to use ChatGPT and I want to say, look, which content should I be creating from, August 1st of 2024 until July 31st of 2025. That's 12 months. You can be that specific with ChatGPT. And it's going to be for this organization who has this target persona. We've already covered those, right? What content should I create for them to get them to achieve whatever my objective is? Now, here's a trick with ChatGPT. It will give you an answer in about 60 seconds. Cool. And you may look over that answer and say, no, not quite. Not quite. That's okay. That's normal. That's normal. So remember, it needs to be trained. You need to tell it sometimes a little bit more so that on the second try, or sometimes even the third try, it gets you where you want to go. Now, why am I telling you to use ChatGPT when I spent the early part of this class telling you that it's great for first and second year college students? Here's why. I'm hoping you're going to learn something by using it, something that you can't learn by listening quite as much as you can learn by doing. So it's a different way to learn. And here's the teaching moment I'm hoping for. One of the things that ChatGPT has trouble with, in fact, all generative AI models have trouble with, because I've tried this with also Gemini, I've tried it with Anthropic's Claude, I've tried it with the latest versions, I've tried it with early versions. I've been doing this now for almost 18 months. One of the things that the editorial calendar assignment hopefully will teach you is that generative AI models don't understand that Ramadan moves around. It's not held the same month every year. In other words, what they are being trained on is old information. They look backwards and they say, oh, you're going to create an editorial calendar for August 1, 2024 to July 31st, 2025. Well, I'm going to put Ramadan in the same place it was in a year ago, or sometimes 2 years ago. Occasionally, I've even discovered that put Ramadan where it was 3 years ago. In other words, it doesn't have the common sense that you have. It doesn't have what Google added as the extra E, experience. It's that's its blind spot, or one of its blind spots. The other blind spot is emotion. So don't be surprised, is even if you train your model, even if you've asked it a couple of times to create an editorial calendar, look for the content that it recommends that you create for Ramadan. Double check that it's going to be in the right month next year. Betcha, I betcha it puts it in the wrong month. In other words, it's a tool. And as you're going to learn in my next class, 10 days from now, you do not want to become a tool of your tools. Otherwise, you will be making a sophomoric mistake. You can't trust it. It has limited intelligence. It only looks backwards. It doesn't understand things that anybody who is creating an editorial calendar or a content calendar in your part of the world already knows. That's your experience. That's why I'm asking you to use this tool. I'm hoping you're going to learn this lesson. Which leads me to the hidden lesson that I want to teach you. And this is a lesson that I learned from a colleague of mine. His name is Avinash Kaushik. Avinash at one point was the digital marketing evangelist for Google. Before that, he was, he founded an organization called Market Motive. I was one of his instructors there. And after that, he's now at a startup. So I've known Avinash for a lot of years, more than 20 years. And yeah, he worked for Google for a while. But before he worked for Google, he came up with what he called the 1090 rule. He's still an advocate of the 1090 rule. I want to share the 1090 rule with you because that's the real lesson I hope you learn today. Back in 2006, Avinash said, if you had $100 to spend on being successful, spend $10 on tools and $90 on people. Now, since then, the tools have become either cheaper or free. Okay, so the 1090 rule is a little hard to apply sometimes when you're dealing with free tools. But the concept is still valid. You need to be smarter than the tool you're using if you're going to then double check what the tool tells you you should do next and spot when it gives you good advice and when it gives you bogus advice. And in your organization, you want to teach other people how to be smarter than the tools that they use, even if the tools get better, even if the tools remain free. And that's the key lesson. That's what I hope you've all learned. Oh my gosh, I did go over time. I apologize. But we do have, I hope, time for any questions. Even though I went long, I apologize for that. I thought, I guess I should have moved faster in the second half. Any questions? It's okay to ask questions. It's also okay to say, Jarbo, you went 19 minutes over. You couldn't have told me that in a less amount of time? Yeah. Okay, that's the lesson I'm taking. I've got to figure out how to speed up that second half. Okay.
Very sorry, I'm not active this class, but I was driving all the way and I just arrived at home. So
Okay.
next class I will be more active. Thank you so much for your explanation. I was listening as a broadcast and I enjoyed really. I
Well,
couldn't-
thank you, Razan. I hope you didn't drive into any ditches.
I tried to drive safe. I tried.
Good. Anyone else? If not, I hope you find that useful. You have an assignment. Yeah, Noon, you have a question?
You know, I
Comment?
just want to say thank you. I think it's a bit heavy, but I'm gonna listen to the record again tomorrow to absorb the information again. But it was the explanation was excellent. Everything, just the information was.
Well, you'll also get the PowerPoint slides. And again, you can click on the links and read some of the articles or watch some of the videos that I've linked to. And hopefully that will fill out the story.
Yeah, but overall, it's really amazing, and everything was really valuable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everyone.
All right. I'll see you again in about 10 days.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Thank you, Greg, for a wonderful session. We'll see everybody next week. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see Greg as well, I think, on the first day of the final week.
Right.
So
On a Monday. Yeah, I'm the exception to the rule. I'm your only Monday class.
Exactly.
Correct, yes. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.